All right. We are live and we're recording. All right. Welcome back to another episode of Persuasion by the Pint. I'm Jonathan Taylor, along with
Sean McCool. John,
Sean today. Yeah, we had a guest today. Very interesting guest.
Yeah. A little bit outside of our normal, but we are talking about marketing. We're talking about AI. We're throwing in a third little component there.
Yeah.
So you've titled this How AI is Changing Casino Marketing, and it's an interview with a special guest. So
yeah,
I guess you should do the whole bio thing and
get
the crowd fired up.
Andrew Pearson. He is an author of a few books related to AI and the casino industry. I think one of them is actually a fiction. It's a novel. So he'll tell us a little more about that. Andrew runs a software consulting business in Macau, China. He is a screenwriter, novelist, and a noted columnist for several peer-reviewed journals. He's written several books and articles, as I mentioned earlier, on topics related to analytics, AI, marketing, Chinese technology, social media. Wow. I mean, and an avid traveler at that. He's a sought after speaker, lecturing on topics such as AI, machine learning, topics that we really enjoy talking about lately, Sean. So should be a fun discussion. We're going to talk about like AI's influence. This is fascinating to me because he responded to the, we put out some queries, and this is an interesting side of it, like what AI's influence on the gaming industry or casinos. And he put out a really interesting article that caught my eye. And there was something that I highlighted in it, that casinos are using technology, not just for CRM to collect data, or, you know, the customer experience and loyalty reasons, but rather to spot gamblers who play the riskiest. This is interesting, and therefore the most profitable. Therefore, they're they're the most profitable bets for the casinos. So they can actually track a gambler's appetite for risk now with AI technology.
Oh, that's scary, scary stuff.
And zone in on those guys who are really going to go all in. So
yeah, well, let's bring him on. Let's
yes,
get the
Andrew. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here. Nice to be back on a show in America, at least.
Yeah, that'll welcome you. Yeah, we forgot to mention Andrew's all the way across the world. In you're like, it's 4 a.m. Or just after 4 a.m. your time.
Yeah,
4:13 in the morning. So he's having a beverage with us at 4:13 in the morning.
I love that. Amazing. That's hardcore. I love it. So
I might drink a coffee stout or something at 4 o'clock in the morning.
You know, I didn't have that. I just had the Chinese version.
Yeah,
but
that works for me.
It'll do. Right.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, we'll get into what we're having.
Yeah. Let me give a quick shout out. We got some fans, Bond and Halston, saying hi. It's actually the kids my wife helps take care of during the week. So
awesome.
So very nice.
Very cool.
Hello to them.
And it is St. Patty's Day or St. Patty's weekend, because St. Patty's is not today. It's officially on Sunday? Is that the 17th?
Yep.
But we're celebrating. You don't have green beer, do you, Sean?
I do not.
Okay. So
I didn't think of it, but
I have an Irish flavor.
Okay. Let our guests go first. Tell us a little bit about the beer you have, Andrew, and we'll.
You know, I have to admit, it's called Hong Men beer. It's not. I've never had it before.
Perfect.
But it does have a very interesting Masonic symbol on it. So I actually, interestingly, I went to my great-grandfather's grave many years ago, and he had a Masonic symbol on it. So that is part of my family, obviously. But yeah. So, you know, obviously it didn't follow through the line to me, but there you go.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting flavor. Probably wouldn't buy it again, but there you go.
So it says on alcohol. It says on Untapped it's a lager, amber, red. Would that sound about right?
You know what? I find a lot of these are malty. So a lot of the Japanese stuff ends up being quite malty, and I'm not a big malt fan.
Yeah.
So this has a bit of that kind of malt flavor to it, but it's kind of light actually. I can't. It's all in Chinese, so I'm not sure how much. But it doesn't taste like it's got too much alcohol.
Yeah, according to Untapped, it's
9.7, so it's quite high.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
So,
Well,
I hope you got some sleep last night. Me.
You know what? I took a nap before this, so
got some sleep this morning, not last night.
Yeah. So, but I work, as I said, I work with a lot of U.S. clients. So
sure. Yeah.
These are my hours.
Oh,
this
of course.
is a little later than normal, but not too bad. So, anyway.
What are you having, Jonathan?
I have one from Sullivan's Brewing. I've had this one on before. I'm going to show it, share. I thought I would pick up an Irish just for the sake of St. Patty's. But this is the Maltings Irish Ale. It's a red ale from Sullivan's Brewing Company. So I don't know when the last time we've had this, but it's a good. I think from what I remember, it's a good one. So we've had this one once or twice, or at least I have. Let's see. It says we are the first Irish brewing company ever to win a world champion keg trophy at the International Brewing Awards, known as the Oscars of Beer World. So didn't we have somebody on from the beer brewing awards? I don't know if that was the same one.
I think it was different.
Different one. Okay. All right. This competition hosts over 12,000 or 1,200 beers from 50 countries. So that's pretty prestigious.
Our guess was more design.
That's true. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. It was all artwork and stuff.
Yeah.
This is all about taste.
Yeah.
That's all we care about. All right.
It is really more important, right?
Yeah.
That's right.
Well,
although the art catches our attention. So
indeed.
For sure.
So
I'm having a black quadruple from Real Ale Brewing. I've had this one before. It's I can't remember anything about it other than it's pretty strong, 10.5%.
Right.
And I remember liking it. So it's
it has a Guinness look to it though, doesn't it? So there's
so let me
33 IBUs too.
So I poured this like 5 minutes ago and the head is still there. So it's
wow. Yeah.
It just lingers apparently. So it also comes in like a 20-ounce can. So usually they shrink the can for the higher alcohol content. This one they went upsize. So all right, well, let's cheers it up.
Cheers. Let's see. Oh, there we go.
There you go.
I was about to hit the applause button again.
That would have been appropriate as well. All right, so Andrew, on the show, we give it a 1 to 5 pints. You can use decimals if you want. Yesterday was Pi Day. You could have done that. So yeah, on a scale of 1 to 5 pints, what do you give the beer?
I'll give it 2.5.
All right, Jonathan.
2.5. Wow, that's a low rating on our show. That's what IPAs get on a regular basis. I'm going to give this one.
It's malt, so
yeah.
So that's a little against it, but sorry, go ahead.
I've reviewed this, and I'm pretty sure I gave this a good rating before. I'm going to give this one a 4, probably a 4.1. It's good. It's nothing spectacular. Not much on the aftertaste, but it's it's just it is what it is. It's a good red ale.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to give mine a 3 right now.
Okay.
So this has a very strong Belgian, front end to it, where it just kind of really hits you. But once the alcohol content kicks in, it'll probably get better. So
give it some time.
Yeah, let it breathe a little bit. It'll get better. But right now, 3, be a good score. So, all right. Well, let's talk about how AI is helping casinos take everybody's money.
Yes.
Is that the correct?
Are you gamblers yourself?
I am not.
Okay. I am a losing gambler. Well, I wouldn't call myself a gambler, but I'm not very good at it. I put some money on during the let's see, what game was that, Sean? It was the It was the
Super Bowl.
No, it was the Alabama-Michigan game.
Oh,
Because of the spread. So I was like, this is a sure win for me because I took the Alabama against the point spread. And I was like, I told my wife, this is a sure thing. And I never gamble, but I lost every bit of it. So that shows you how great of a gambler I am.
yeah.
So you're a sports betting brother.
Yes. Well, I'm interested in sports lines. I don't place a lot of money because my wife would kill me. She'd wring my neck, or I would probably be divorced. But it does fascinate me, the psychology behind it, and people that go to casinos and the people that are very successful at it. I'm always interested in learning how they become successful and how they are able to, beat the odds. Sometimes I know it doesn't always work that way.
Or is that just a myth?
That's
like, I would think over time, the casino always wins.
Yeah.
It's not, you know what? The casinos are a bit different from sports books.
Okay.
Sports books, there are people who can beat it. We actually had a guy working for us several years ago who was an Australian, and he wrote his PhD thesis was basically how to beat the Australian rules football odds. And I'll explain some of the ideas that he had that we pitched to our clients as well. And there are ways. He's been kicked off several sports betting websites because in Australia, they actually have the power where if you continuously beat them, they can just shut you down.
Right.
So, which is nice for them, right?
Right.
But then it becomes a battle of trying to find the confederates of these people. So you have to track this guy who beat me. His behavior was XYZ. Now we're looking at someone else over here. Is he related, or is his behavior and his betting patterns so similar to the other guy that we think it might be him? Yeah. And if he's continuously beating, you just shut them down anyway. I know last I saw in Australia, the government might be trying to stop that and actually not let them cut people off.
Right.
But sports betting is very different from casinos in that the odds are always changing, and you do have quite a bit more. The book that I'm working on now is around match fixing in Singapore and Malaysia, which are hotbeds of that. So I think it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, just the match fixing side of things. Mm-hmm. So you're getting to a point right now where you have to use models to make sure that the games are not just efficient, but also not being fixed. So there are ways that you can check that out. And Singapore Pools is the sports book in Singapore, and they have notoriously terrible odds because they're a match fixing country, and they can't lay off their bets to any other sports book around the world because people are worried that someone just came in and put $100,000 on a match in second division Germany that's probably fixed because the ref has been given a slipped a few $10 or $15,000.
I'm sure that happens here in the States too. I wonder sometimes.
I think the most famous one probably is from America, right? The baseball.
The Red Sox
World
back
Series,
in the 1917 Sox.
Yeah,
they made a movie out of that where they basically tanked the game.
And then, but we also had the NBA guy, right? The NBA, just like 10 or 15 years ago, where there was an official who was also, I think he owed money to maybe some mobsters, and then he helped throw the game as well. And then I went to Tulane, I think in the late 80s, maybe 89, and they had a match. They had a point shaving scandal at that point when I was there. So, and I would bet it happens in college quite a bit.
Oh yeah,
guys don't
absolutely
get paid. So yeah, it's a fact.
I think it happens in the NFL too.
Yeah, there's definitely a whole segment of the population that believes the NFL is on the regularly scripted and everything else.
Yeah, well, I think there was a very interesting conspiracy theory this year, wasn't
it?
Wasn't there that had to do with some singer too? But
yeah. I mean, it's interesting when you follow some of that stuff. People will find, of course, if you're looking hard enough, you'll always find something to prove your point, right?
Yeah.
But it's interesting to find some of the videos where they show players just completely missing other players on tackles and things like that, and the ball moving a yard on the placement by the refs. Like, just, there's so many people with the cameras and the ability to record so quickly.
Yeah,
it's getting hard to hide anything if you are doing stuff.
Yeah, true.
It is.
In Hong Kong, there's this thing called the Hong Kong Jockey Club, which is a massive, they produce 3% of the GDP of Hong Kong, and it's basically their horse racing and their sports betting. And so they have 2 racetracks in Hong Kong, one in Causeway Bay, a beautiful section of town, and the other one in the New Territory section. But a few years ago, maybe like 20 years ago now, they actually caught someone had put some like darts under the turf, and they were actually trying to hit the horses as they were running by, so that they would get a little tranquilized, or freak out.
Wow.
And and then I remember I used to bet on American horses, and there was I think the Arkansas Derby a few years ago, there was a jockey that had a shocker, so he was using the shocker to basically, it was in his whip. So he would use it basically to give the horse a little bit of a jolt, and the horse ended up winning. But it was ridiculous because you would watch him go, the horse went by the winning thing, and then you could see the jockey just tossing the thing aside. And we were like, what was that all about?
Yeah.
I was actually in Santa Anita one time, and I'm standing in the ring, and I won't name the jockey's name, but he was quite a famous one. And I was standing right next to an African-American guy, and the jockey looked right at him, and he used his stick, and he goes like that, right? Which was like, so I looked over at the guy and I said, what was that? But the guy was gone. He was like over, making the bets. So it may have been just, the horse is really, ready to go today. Or it could have been, and he won,
Yeah.
So it was like, I'm not one of these naive people who thinks none of this stuff happens, because I know it does.
Sure.
But, as much as we can use analytics to try to stop it, it's never going to stop, because it's just a part of the business.
Yeah.
And
by the way, before we get like Boston people yelling at this podcast, that was I made a mistake. That's the Chicago White Sox, not the Red Sox, back in 1917. They were referred to
it wasn't
as
the
Black
Cubs?
Sox.
It was the White Sox. Okay.
Yeah, it was the White Sox.
Yeah.
Because they were given the term Black Sox, I think, back in the day because of that. So
and I know I see some clips from that show, Atlantic City show, and I guess there's a guy in there who's one of the leaders of the mob, who kind of talks about how he's the one that fixed it. So
So Andrew, before we get into AI, I know you're over there in China.
Yep.
Is it true, or maybe you can give some perspective about how big gambling is over there compared to the U.S.?
So
I've heard it's like a massive industry over there compared to the U.S.
So it's, before COVID, we were like 5 times bigger than Las Vegas. So, So you're talking about when in 2018, I remember the CIA has this thing called a fact book, and Macau was actually on track to be the richest country in the world, basically because it's a tiny place. It's only got 700,000 people. It's literally 30 square kilometers. So if you don't like a lot of people, then this is not your place. But the way it works is, it's a very different gambling scene here. Like Vegas is a lot of fun. You go there, there's half naked, the waitresses wandering around in very skimpy outfits, right, with free drinks. Here you've got basically, grandmothers pushing tea carts around. There's no free liquor in the casinos. Pretty much, it's just and there's a seriousness to the Chinese gambler that takes all the fun away. It's almost like it's almost like an atmosphere of a wake. Sometimes these tables will get hot and they get excited, but it's mostly baccarat, which is it's not a game with any skill. It's just the cards are dealt. You don't say hit me. You don't get another card. It's just they're dealt. You choose one side or the other side. I'll get into it a bit more when I explain what was going on in that article. So you've got, they don't play slots. I'm not a big slot fan myself, but They don't play slots that much. Vegas is, I think, 85% slots, 15% tables. Here it's flipped over, so it's 85% tables, 15% slots. I know many years ago, Mr. Wynn thought that within a few decades, the Chinese will gravitate to playing more slots, but I don't see that. I think they're just, they think it's all in the stars. So they play certain games, and they play baccarat a lot because the house edge is very small.
Okay.
And then they play other games that are, they kind of enjoy roulette, but not as much as the Malaysians do. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like, but we did work with Galaxy Macau, and right now I think it's technically the biggest building in the world when you call it the footprint. Like the building footprint is the biggest one in the world. And I like to joke that, basically the biggest building in the world used to be the Pentagon, which was, its mission was to destroy little Southeast Asian countries and, Middle Eastern despots. And now the biggest building in the world is just set around destroying the Chinese baccarat player's wallet, which I think does mean, humanity progresses. But yeah, it's a crazy place because there's just, I think 500,000 people go back and forth every day. A lot of them are workers, obviously, because they do use a lot of Chinese people for the restaurants and those kind of jobs. But I will say there is a lot of money laundering going here too. There's a lot of money that's coming through. We've had a few people who swam over with money attached to them. So it's it's a very colorful place, and I'll describe what happens in my book because it's based on a lot of true events as well. So but the thing about China right now, and kind of always, is the Chinese people are desperate to get out and get their money out. So they're always trying to figure out ways to do that, whether it would be jewels, cash, gold, or whatever. So one of the casinos a few years ago was like, well, let's just offer patrons gold. Right? So they got, people were very excited about that because it's physical gold that you can then, take and deposit and then put it in your Swiss bank account. So
that's interesting. So they're not, they're not really thrilled, much like ourselves here in the States. They're not thrilled with their own currency, huh?
Well, it's not so much the currency, it's because they can only get $50,000 out every year, right? So the legal limit, and they don't have a government that'll be like, I'm coming and I'll take that money, and you have nothing, you have no banks or anything that can stop that. So, so it's a whole different environment, a whole different system. But
interesting.
It's a huge, as I said, it's a huge market, and the whole region's becoming that way too. Manila, I'm off to Manila next week, and they have I'm trying to close a deal with a company that plans on spending $2 billion on casino in Manila and a casino up in Clark, which is an old U.S. Air Force base that they used, during World War II and obviously for Vietnam as well. So the region is just becoming, crazily. And the Asians love to gamble, the Chinese especially. They're hugely addicted to it, to be quite frank.
So you're kind of you're championing the AI software, I guess, towards this industry, right? I mean, you think it's going to be, I know, I can see in ways it improves things. I mean, obviously from the house standpoint, I mean, as you highlighted in your article, but there's other ways. I think from a marketing standpoint, I always find it interesting because I was reading a book even before, like we talked about, just how casinos, and specifically in slot machines and casinos, how they create the sticky effect where people just don't want to leave. Like, I mean, it's not only from the drinks, like you said earlier, the drinks they serve you, or the free drinks that they bring by. But there's an addiction that, that they create within people that go in that just keep them there. Like they don't want to leave,
and they've done studies where they showed that it's not just humans, but it's also pigeons, and I think it was monkeys. And what they did with the pigeons was they said, hit this lever. And for one of the things, if you hit a lever, you get a pellet to eat, right?
Yeah.
And the other one was you hit this lever a certain amount of times, and then you get a bigger, then you get a big amount of pellets.
Yep.
And what they did was they found that they preferred the hitting and then, getting a big reward, even when the reward over time or over the full amount was smaller than getting a pellet per minute or per peck. So the casinos and especially the slot manufacturers really are using the ability, like if you notice now, they don't use coins anymore. They took away the coins because they figured it's much easier and it's all about getting the money into the machines faster, right? It's all about speeding up the process. So you start dealing with paper, and it goes in and out. But if you notice, you'll sit down and you still hear all the coins clicking, right? You still hear the sounds, and that's all like to get the mind, and all the lights are flashing to kind of give you this reward that, oh, look, how exciting is this, So, so it's a huge amount of money that we're dealing with here. In every casino, there will be on the corner, if you have a problem, if you're a problem gambler, come over here and we'll help you out, know. But, the truth is they have to do that. And they really, with all of the analytics that they have, they really are looking for the people that are going to come back and the people that are going to spend. And, I'll get into a bit more details, but if you look at one of the most interesting things that happened a few years ago was when Caesar was having financial problems. Caesars, if you remember them, they're having financial problems. And I don't know if they were getting more loans or someone was going to buy them out, but basically they valued the CRM system and the patron and the loyalty card program. That was the most valuable part of the casino, right? It wasn't the slot machines or the property as much as it was the people. And I mean, they had millions and 20, 30, 50 million of people. So it was a huge amount of people. But that was kind of the market recognized, where the value was. And living in Asia and looking at the different ways business works, you could never really argue with American business. I think there is something about that will give you a valuation that will be in many ways very correct. Yes, you have Tesla that has a crazy PE, and you have, but in China we had Luckin Coffee, which was a complete and utter, I think 150 or several hundreds of millions of dollars accounting fraud. So I think when a company when the market says there's a valuation of 50 million for, and it may have been 500 million, I can't remember the actual numbers, but that was kind of, and so the casinos recognized that 20 years ago, 25 years ago. Let's get the information on these customers. Let's figure out, what they're spending the money on, because the interesting thing about the casinos in Vegas now is they're not just casinos. They're restaurants that are hugely expensive. They're nightclubs where you can spend thousands of dollars on a bottle of champagne. And there are a lot of people that go to Vegas that don't even gamble anymore. They're just there for the entertainment aspect of it. They want to see Usher or whomever. So now you get to a point where the casinos are like, okay, let's have a baccarat tournament this weekend. Let's go through our list of baccarat players, and that means this whole section of the floor is going to be filled up with all those players. So let's not invite anyone who wants to play any of these other games, but let's invite the people who we want to fill up the restaurants with, right? So let's invite, or let's have a Chinese act, because we know we're having a baccarat tournament this weekend, and that'll work really well because baccarat, Chinese players love that. So you're getting to the point where they can really decide. They can get very proactive on how they want the floor to look, and then they even had we even look at households. We look at one guy, and if we know he's married, then they'll offer him a suite, and they'll figure out the wife's coming as well. So we give a free room, and then we know she's a gambler too. So that's going to be 2 for 1 on many ways. So
or in Vegas, she's a shopper, he's a gambler. He's going to spend 8 hours at the poker table. She's got 8 hours to shop.
Yep. And
know, or go to a show.
In Macau, you know, we have the mistress as well, and she'll be up at the reward center, you know, and he's playing X amount of hands, and she's thinking, oh, I'll get the nice Hermes purse kind of a thing, you know. So it's, you know, these rewards get they get quite ridiculous at some point, you know.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So what I hear you saying, and for some of our listeners, you know, we have a lot of direct response people, we have a lot of copywriters, salespeople. Basically, what they're doing is they're looking at their list, they're seeing what their list already likes, and they're making more offers that are similar to what they already like. I mean, it really is basic marketing when you get down to it. You know, probably a little more glitz and glamour and a little more cost on the back end to fulfill. But it's the same principles, it sounds like.
It is. And sometimes we'll even do a second, like, so they have a game called Sickbo here, which is kind of a game with dice, and the dice is 3 dice, and you have to pick which numbers are going to come up. And what we found with one of our clients was there was a certain sector of people who loved to play baccarat, but their second game was Sickbo. So what we would then tell the hosts would be, look, if he's having a bad time on the baccarat table, go to him with an offer for a Sickbo, so we can take him off the negative experience, you know, on that table, and put him on something that that he'll at least be fresh on, right? So
what are it sounds like that's an in time process then.
Yeah.
Right? They're monitoring in real time. They're saying, oh, this guy's losing.
Yep.
He's liable to walk away in 30 minutes based on, you know, what we know, and he's going to stop spending money. So instead of letting him walk away, let's increase the transaction value.
Yep.
By pulling him over here and giving him something new and exciting to hang on to for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And you get an extra hour's worth of spending out of him.
Yeah.
So
you'll have, like, a lot of people will have cards, right? So they'll, when they go to a table or on a slot machine, they put their cards in because they want that reward that comes with it, right? Mm-hmm. So the casino, they have this thing, it's called the Theo number. So if you sit at a baccarat table or a blackjack table, it's $100 a hand minimum, and then they'll track how long you stay there, and then they'll do the calculation. $100 a hand multiplied by, I can't remember exactly what blackjack is, but let's say 1.5%. So you're there for 3 or 4 hours. Then they'll figure, I don't know, 30 hands an hour, something like that. And then they'll figure, okay, so at the end of the day, he stayed here for 3 hours. That's about $300 in Theo. So that's when they start offering, okay, we'll give him a room, you know, that would cost $300, something like that. So
sure.
So they're tracking every time you come, how long you come for. And then we had some casinos where they have a problem is that, you know, someone would come sit down and play double or triple their the minimum hand. So it looks like 300 per hand, but the gamblers were sophisticated enough to know that they wanted to play high while the boss, the pit boss, was around. So the pit boss was taking the numbers, and then once the pit boss walks away, then he goes down to the minimum. But the pit boss has him for 300, you know, for that hour. And so there's also a game that's being played here between the sophisticated gamblers and the house. We had a lot of, you know, there's a lot of smokers here. So they get free packets of smokes. So they'd be getting the free packet of smoke from the hostess. She then clocks out. The next hostess comes in, and then he goes and gets another free packet from her because she doesn't know that, you know, he's already received that free packet. So there's a, you know, it's a game you play, you know, it's like.
So I'm curious, Andrew, from your perspective, where you kind of see all the data, who's winning in that little back and forth game where the gambler and the casino, the gambler thinks he's getting one over on the casino? Who's actually winning?
The casinos are, you know.
I figure it sounds like a perfect setup for some cognitive bias going on there.
Yeah.
Where you think you're getting them, but they're actually getting you.
And actually there was like, I don't know, have you played baccarat before? Probably not, right?
No.
So basically it's a game where there's 3 options. Okay. Banker, player, or tie. Okay. So you sit down, and I think banker's going to win. banker comes up more often, so the odds are a little, maybe you get 95 cents back for the dollar that you put on. Player, I think you get $1 back, something like that. So it's not a, it's not a great, it's kind of like, it is kind of like Baccarat where you get your bet back. But so you sit down and basically you say banker, and then you bet that, and there can be 8 other people or 7 other people at the table with you, 6 other people at the table with you, but only one person gets the hand. So it'd be like in blackjack, if there was 1 hand for the house, 1 hand for the player,
the whole table.
So everyone who's sitting here is either going banker or player, but they don't get their own set of cards, right?
Wow. Okay.
So the casino, lost my track of thought. So the casino basically is looking, so they make about 1.5% on that. What they found is they'll give certain points to players just for being there in that time. And what they found was they don't mind if someone's on either side of that bet, because the cost for those points are very low, and the house edge was still covering that. So if you had 2 people who are basically playing the opposite sides of the bet, where you would think that kind of cancels each other out, it doesn't, because every now and then there'll be a tie on the cards. And when there's a tie on the cards, that pays like 10-1, so it's a lot higher. But that's where they make their money. So it's kind of like roulette, right? If you had everyone playing on the thing, every now and then that 00 comes up, and that's kind of where the house makes money. So these people thought they were really clever, but the casino was like, no, we don't really, we still make money. So we don't really care.
I think that's true.
And there's an interesting fellow that I do know that invited me to speak at an event a few years ago, or actually it was right at the end of COVID, but he actually was a professional gambler who had found some ways to win. And he had a little team, obviously 21, there are ways you can do it with counting cards as well. But you can't do the counting cards in Macau because they shuffle the deck every time. So that destroys that aspect of it. So,
well, that's, I actually worked with a trading company here. They did stock market trading, on the S&P, and they used the old MIT card counting strategy, that the movie with Kevin Spacey was based off of.
21,
which doesn't work. Yeah, which doesn't work anymore because there's like 6 decks now and all the different things. But it does still work in the stock market. And these guys are having pretty amazing success with it. And they're actually finding the less you play, the more you make, which kind of makes sense. But so tell us, Andrew, how AI is starting to change the game. Like, casinos were doing pretty well without AI. I mean, it sounds
but they were always, but they've always been on the front end of analytics as well. So they were, they were able to pull off these loyalty programs before the airlines obviously did it first, but the hotels were kind of jumping on board as well, probably like 20 years ago. So, back to that Baccarat example. So I did say that if you bet on the tie, I believe it's 10-1. So what the casinos decided to do, and there's an interesting theory or a mantra, which I think is very prevalent in tech, especially in the US these days, which is ask forgiveness, not permission. So it's this whole idea, right? That basically,
it's a great motto.
It is. And to be honest with you, we can't wait for the government, because the government is so far behind that we'll be 10 iterations through before they really figure out what's going on. And what the casinos do here in Macau, there's something called I think it's the DCIJ or the DICJ. I get them mixed up every now and then. It's an acronym that's basically, they're the ones that control the licensing, right? So they have to approve everything. But what these casinos did was they decided, you do have an element that uses the cards here, so they have loyalty programs, but there's another element that doesn't. And we won't go into why, whatever. But what the casinos wanted to do was they wanted to track these people because they knew that there were some that tended to play much more higher profit games. So if you consistently play that tie, or you play, like, there's a way you can play numbers. So my hand is a 9 and a 9, 18. So I could play that 8 would come up, let's say. So they were like, how can we associate these guys and how can we spot these players? So they use facial recognition technology to, basically give them a face print. They don't necessarily need the name, as long as they recognize the person when he walks in. And then I guess they did need to, so they would recognize him and they would need to figure out how to market to him to get him to come back. If he was on property, that's fine, but they still wanted him to come back because later on they would market him and basically say, we'll give you these offers. So basically they have this information now. They know this guy comes in maybe once every month, plays X amount of time, and then they would then use that information, and these were the people that they would then market to come back and play more often, because there is a limitation with, especially when it gets busy, there is a limitation of seats at the table, right? So there is a limitation that, and the way the casinos work as well is they do have that dynamic pricing. So when it gets very busy, you'll see the minimums go from, let's say, 100 Hong Kong dollars up to 1,000 Hong Kong dollars, right? So these tables get very, very
surge pricing, I think, is what we're calling it.
Yeah,
here in the U.S. right now.
Yeah. So Friday night, Saturday night, we just had Chinese New Year. That gets crazy. So when they have these surge pricing, then you have a point where those are very, very valuable seats. So that's where you want to bring in the very big, the very highly profitable people. And I don't know how long it was going on for. I don't know. I think I do know which casino did it, but I won't say it. I know which ones didn't, that's for sure. But because there's only a few that are sophisticated enough to do it. And they are from your side of the pond, but I won't go any further than that. So basically the DCIJ found out that they were doing it and they shut it down, and they said, you can't use facial recognition beyond security purposes. So, the casinos were like, okay, we'll now have to figure out another way.
Sounds like the government was getting jealous.
What?
The government was getting jealous of
right.
Yeah,
using their stuff the wrong way.
Yeah. So, but these casinos are massive. They give 39% of their money, their revenue, straight to the government. So they are making a lot of money, but they also have enormous costs.
What is their on average? What is their net profit? I've heard it's like 1.5 to 3%. Is that about right?
Yeah, that's about right.
But the volume is so high that they're just
volume's so high.
Yeah. Wow. So Andrew, talk a little bit more about AI. And I noticed I'm going through your Amazon author page here.
Sure.
And let me just throw that up on the screen real quick while you drink some beer. You got a lot of books here, and you have the AI sportsbook, the AI hotelier, the AI marketer, retailer.
So a lot of those books are variations on a theme. So like the AI marketer was kind of the first one there. And then since I work in the casino industry, I think that was the second one. Sportsbook was the third. Hotelier is pretty similar to the casino one. So it took me a bit of time to adjust them. But,
but it's interesting. You have, there's two words I see over and over in this list, and one is AI and one is predictive.
Yeah.
Is there a difference there, and what are you seeing as commonalities with AI rolling out? Like, I'm in the world of, copywriting, coaching, things like that. So I'm seeing a very kind of narrow window of AI on language and how it's able to write basically and talk, so to speak. Well, what are you seeing?
So AI really came out of that predictive analytics genre almost. And I think the first book I wrote was like 5 years ago, maybe a couple years before COVID. And the way
you are cranking them out, by the way. Good
Yeah, I
job.
know. Like,
You know
what's your
what? We had
secret,
COVID,
man? You got. I
and
didn't
I
realize
was
you had that many.
well, I was stuck in Macau, and it's
That's
good
smart.
marketing. I give it to my potential clients and
Yeah.
Yeah,
customers.
exactly.
So, honestly, and I'm a writer. I have been forever. So,
Yeah.
it's a natural thing for me to do. And as I said, a lot of it's variations on a theme.
Right.
But the book at the beginning, I say the best way to raise money is to put AI and ML at the front of your perspective and a .ai at the end of your website. And that was like 3 or 4 years ago. And I did recognize. I mean, analytics is really cool, and it's very hot. But AI, anyone who is in software 5 years ago was like, my God, that word is everywhere. That acronym, and it's only got worse.
Right.
And you see AI toothbrush, AI in toothbrushes
Yeah, it's
now.
everywhere now. Yeah,
It's everywhere.
it's a marketing
And
term now, as much as a technology term. It's a
it is.
marketing term right now.
It is, and it's very deviant. I mean, it's very, it's not quite true either. It's
Right.
like there's a lot of AI that isn't quite AI. It's a very simple.
Yeah. It's yeah.
But
It's just
what's
a fancy
interesting
thing.
is,
Yeah.
the .ai is actually a country,
Yeah,
and the
Mhm.
revenue that they're getting from this is just unbelievable. Like the
Antigua.
money
Yeah,
the money they're
yeah.
making is just, it's like
Yeah.
exploded their GDP. It's
I think
crazy.
I had one at one point, but I lost it along the way. But but yeah, no. And in terms of where it's going, I'll send you a link of my latest articles, because generative AI it's become another huge term. Probably about a year and a half ago, when ChatGPT hit like a tsunami.
Right.
That's kind of, and I think I just did a course actually on Gen AI, and it's all about Midjourney, Runway ML, and Pika Labs. And I basically, within 30 minutes, created an image of four different newscasters, four different nationality: Asian American, Caucasian, white, Caucasian, Asian, and then an Asian man, and basically stuck those images into Runway. So, basically got them moving, turned it into a video, and then put words in their mouth. So it's like you could still see, it's not ready for prime time quite yet, but basically you had four different people who were hitting all these different races, or all these different, personalities and nationalities. And there was an interesting article I read several years ago, which was talking about how the editing room is not going to be humans anymore. It's going to be more AI. Basically, you'll have, if my audience is an African American woman in her 30s in Washington, let's say, then I'm going to create an advertisement that will be an African American woman of that age. I will, basically,
or 5 years younger.
similar. But they said also, to the point where if it's raining outside, it'll be raining in the video. And the way you can do that is you can have I guess you can have a locator and a weather thing of where she's checking the video out.
Sure.
And all that'll be done, basically about what, probably faster than it would take a normal editor to do one of those videos. So
Yeah, well, I mean,
yeah,
it's
fascinating
it's
stuff.
Minority Report, right? If you remember that film,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
he's on he opens the digital newspaper and there's an ad specifically for him. He walks by the bus stop and there's an ad specifically for him, like down to the name and all this stuff. And that's we're months from that, it seems like now.
And there's an article too it's a podcast actually from Mercedes, and they were talking about, oh, we're not gonna send the camera crew out to the big desert, Death Valley. What we'll do is we'll take an image of our customer or potential customer, and then stick him in the car through generative AI. So then we'll send a nice brochure that'll have him, right? Especially if he's a former client, right?
Yeah.
If he's a former client, they're going to have some pictures along the way.
Sure.
And we'll stick it in there, and then we'll let him know what it looks like for him to be behind the seat driving across the floor of Death Valley. And so this is where they're going, and they're also thinking about customizing the car manual. They're like, the Americans don't read them, the Germans do. So, we have to be much more.
The Americans
you know,
need very big pictures for their car
exactly,
manuals.
exactly,
Germans can use words.
exactly. So,
We need full color pictures with arrows pointing to where
That's
they
right.
think the wiper fluid is.
exactly.
So
I don't think it was an attack on America itself, but
no, but it
it's
would be
probably very
accurate
true.
either way.
Yeah, it is
Yeah,
probably very
exactly.
accurate.
Yeah, no, that's interesting how so basically it sounds to me like this is just an evolution of, direct mail where you insert a name into the letterhead.
Exactly.
Now you're doing that with video and everything else. I mean, Sora just, has come out recently from
Yeah.
chat for OpenAI.
Yep.
And we talked about last week, I think. We talked about how Tyler Perry
Yep.
canceled $1 billion worth of $800 million worth of studio space because he's like, oh yeah, let's just do this.
Right.
Which makes sense because it's
We're not gonna need
basically
that.
the next version of CGI.
Yeah, it is. And
And
I remember because I had a friend who he ended up shooting a little trailer 25, 30 years ago using a Silicon graphics machine back then. And now we're at a point where you can just put text in, right? And
Yeah.
the article, the session I just did was all about prompting. So it was all about, how can we use these words properly? And it's getting really sophisticated. And Sora especially is incredible.
It's
Yeah,
amazing.
So
the amount of output that it puts out for the amount of input is amazing. Really, when you stop and think about it, the angles, the coloring, the everything is just with basically a 1 to 2 sentence prompt. It's just there's a lot.
Meta's going to have something later this year as well, I think. So they're going to come up with something pretty impressive too, I'm pretty sure.
So how are I saw your book on the sports books and AI. That's interesting to me because I didn't know you had that book. How is AI being used by like these sports book companies that are,
So I'll tell you, so we pitched this idea to one of the sports books in Australia. I won't name it, but they liked the idea so much. They didn't end up hiring us, but they implemented it on their own.
Sure.
And we were able to find out later on, but what can you do, right? These are ideas. So basically, and this was my consultant who came up with this idea. He said, what sports books really are trying to do is trying to figure out who's a good bettor and who's not a good bettor.
Mm-hmm.
Since you actually bet on that game, you will understand this pretty easily. So basically what happens is you took the odds, you took the numbers, right? So who'd you bet on? Michigan? No,
I bet on Alabama because they were
right.
I bet against the spread, which was -3 Michigan.
It seemed too high, right? Yeah.
I was like, and it didn't shift. I was like, that line will shift over time, but it stayed the same for like 3 weeks.
So what we said to them was, when you have new customers come in, watch what they bet on. If you bet when the line first comes out, that's just the first sign that you're a sophisticated gambler, right? If the line moves in your direction, then you're probably a good gambler, right? So we said, follow these guys on their first couple bets. And if there's consistent movement towards them, for them, then they're a good gambler and you need to shut them down really quickly. So they were kind of like, oh yeah, that's not a bad idea, and then they ended up stealing it. And, but it's a very clever idea. It was like, because sports books are notorious for offering bonuses, right? They want to get you to sign up. So they're very generous at the beginning, right? So if you can figure out this person is going to beat you over the long term as fast as you possibly can, then that's very valuable. So
isn't it true? Isn't it true these sports books, what they do, how they make their money? Because I was reading about this, I think last week, where so during let's say during football season, they'll take, and we'll use a hypothetical game, the New York Jets against the Miami Dolphins, and there'll be a bookie, there'll be a sports book agent, and this person they'll take the money in and they'll put half of it on the Dolphins and half of it on the Jets, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, correct, I could be completely wrong on that, but then whoever wins that game, they'll go to they'll go back to their customers who put their, who actually won based off of their bet on either one of those.
So
and then they'll split the difference and then go to those and then keep them hooked. And
so the whole idea of the spread that you were talking about is to get the same amount of money on both sides of the bet.
Right.
That's what they're doing there, right? But then if you notice, a lot of times it'll be like, perfect example is the bet on the coin flip for the Super Bowl, right?
Yeah.
So if you put $10, you're going to win 9, right? On either side of that bet.
Right.
So they're taking in 10 on either side and only paying out 9. So they're making 10% on that bet. It's really a stupid bet. But that's kind of how it works with most of those bets, right? It's like, because you'll see that they're not, sometimes they pay 1-to-1, but oftentimes it'll be 97, to 100. So that's where they're making their, that's where they're making their money. And the way, the one way that you can make money in sports betting is if you have multiple accounts with multiple countries. And that's one of the things that my former consultant does do. They have a syndicate where you need sophisticated systems that are going out and locking both sides of those bets pretty much at the same time, because they can move, but they're taking, opposite sides. I mean, I do a little trading with manifold.markets, and it's only virtual money. So it's like, whatever. But I was trading with a sports book and they got shut out of China a few years ago. And it's very sad because I was doing very well with the political markets in the US, but anyway, so this one was like, it seemed like you could buy Liverpool to win at 10-to-1 and sell it at 9-to-1. So they have multiple markets there, but once again, it's virtual money. So I was like, whatever.
So did you just say that they're betting on our political system over there?
Oh yeah.
I didn't even realize that. That's
you can't bet on it here in the States, but you can't overseas, like in the UK.
That's wild.
Yeah.
No, you can bet it. It's like there's something called Predict It. Yeah, I think it's called Predict It. I'll send you the link afterwards. But yeah, you can. I mean, it's
but you can bet. It's not located here in the States though. You can bet on it, but it's over. It is in the States.
It's based in the States. It's like,
oh wow,
it's weird. It's run by maybe Iowa, maybe a university in Iowa or something.
Right.
I'll send you the link. But basically, you can. But the tricky thing about America is every state has its own jurisdiction issues, right? So it's like, good luck being in a state that has it. So
that's why you go after the big states, right? Texas, California, New York, go for the population numbers, and then
But California doesn't have sports betting. California, you can. There's no online sports betting. You can go to a casino in
Isn't that crazy?
on an Indian reservation and probably make some bets at a sports book, but and you can bet on horses, obviously. But
it is crazy how there's that's true with the states. Like some states allow it, some it's on Indian reservations, boats.
It's a lot better than it used to be, but it is still getting there.
Well, I mean, anywhere tax revenue flows, right? Eventually, it becomes okay.
Yeah,
exactly. Whenever the states have problems, exactly. So,
marijuana, whatever, like it eventually gets approved if it generates tax revenue. That's the thing.
And the states are in tax problem and they're having tax issues.
Exactly.
I find that motivates them quite a bit.
Yeah. It's funny how ideals and morals change with a need for revenue, for sure. So, Andrew, I'm curious. Like you've looked at this AI, you've looked at predictive stuff, like, and you've looked at marketing, retailing, airlines, social media, cruise lines, even. Like, what do you see as like the common trends that people that are in marketing, in sales, need to be aware of and need to or can capitalize on for themselves?
So one of the issues in Macau is they can't let any of the customer data get out. So they can't go cloud. They can't do anything on the cloud that has to do with personal data, which means they cannot access any of the auto ML modeling. They can't access, we do a lot of work with Click, some work with Domo, some work with Tableau. So these are the business intelligence tools, which have all become it's not just data visualization anymore. It's business intelligence and analytics. And they're all pushing cloud. They're all saying, if you want to get some sophisticated modeling going, then, we got to put it up in the cloud and have the AWS, server crunch these numbers that are going to take, a lot more power than what your on-site, on-prem software is going to do. And I would say the customer's getting very sophisticated now. So if you're not playing in that area, and you spoke earlier about real-time stuff, it is real-time. It's like, because the customer can play, and then he can walk over to a machine on the edge of the floor and then get coupons according to the play that he's just made. We were working with another company that was a marketing solution, and it's all on your phone. You're marketing straight onto your phone. The reality is real time is the way that it's going, but it's all connected as well. You're having, I went on one of Star Cruise's ships a few years ago, which is a company owned by Genting. And it was interesting because you could go and you could basically, they would give you one of their iPads, and there was one table on the ship, two tables on the ship that had no one sitting in the seats, but a gambler dealing away. So basically you would take the iPad and you could be anywhere on the ship betting on that table. So you would give them, you would obviously give them some money, or they would give you credit, and then you could be on your toilet, doing your business,
or sitting by the pool, or wherever.
Absolutely, just clicking on that iPad, man.
Exactly, and that's kind of, as that may sound bad, but we're getting to the point where you're offering your services, whatever business you're in, to the customer wherever they are, as long as they have a mobile connection.
Meet them where they are. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like convenience.
So it's convenience, and I would say too, going back to the social media aspect as well. I mean, obviously there's a big fight over TikTok in the US right now, but gaming has become a very social thing. Obviously all of I think the consultant I was telling you about, he moved to the US to work for one of the sports books there. So now all of these sports books are looking at the US as this extraordinary, this is the biggest and best market they could ever dream of. So, you've got, I think it's MGM Bets. I think they're tied up with maybe one of the English bookies. But I've seen Will Hill there, and these companies have been doing this for decades. There's in my book, I talk about how they took a bet when JFK did his speech about man landing on the moon. And some guy walked in and said, "Oh, I want to bet on that." And, he won $100,000, I think, in today's money. He bought himself a Jaguar and then killed himself when he smashed against a tree, a few years later.
Wow.
But it's like, so we're at a point right now where you can bet almost on anything.
Well, I mean, I think if I remember correctly, like side bets on the Super Bowl were at least 50% of the bets this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you see side bets, those will be the fat, profitable ones.
Yeah.
Because those are the ones that are very unlikely to hit, but people will. And it's just like when you go to the horse races. If you bet on a trifecta, the house takes a lot more of that than a win, place, or show. It's just,
because the odds, the numbers are just so ridiculous at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so it's and honestly, the other side of marketing, the other side of analytics too, is we do use them to spot the problem gamblers. So there are ways that you can look at someone's history, look at someone's
they have a major problem. Right.
Yeah. Sports books are particularly good at spotting particular, because like someone who consistently doubles down is probably someone who's trying to get back what he did, but it's behavior that, and then someone who is rather emotional, like if you're sitting there and you don't enjoy the victories and you don't lament the losses too much, that's apparently an issue as well. And then there's a bunch of psychological things where if your parents, if you went to jail, apparently, so there are certain things that you can put into a model and then say, yeah, this guy has a high propensity of being a problem gambler. So let's.
Would they know that? Would they know that? I mean,
of course they know that.
Well, yeah. I mean, honestly,
I'm sure
if you like a lot of, I don't know so much now, but I do remember there were a lot of like log in through your Facebook account, right? So if you log in through your Facebook account, you're giving your whole Facebook history, right?
Yeah, I was literally talking. There was one of my friends today made a post about like he was talking about how he doesn't really talk about the fact that he's an endurance athlete, but he got served an ad for like this 7 continents in a year type endurance race, right? And he was like, how do they know that? And I was like, dude, they have like 400,000 points of data. Like they know everything about you.
Yeah.
And I put in his comments, I was like, here's an article from 10 years ago about Target and with their rewards card, how they were able to predict a teenage girl's pregnancy. I remember this was a big article when it came out. Like the father got so upset that they were sending Pampers ads to his teenage daughter, and they were right.
Yeah, exactly.
Just from her reward card, and that was almost pre-social media at the time.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
and now
that was the early days of analytics. That's a story they tell. Yeah, quite a bit. So,
and
then the beer and diapers they talk about a lot as well. So I guess they found that men would pick up the diapers and beer at the same time, so they put them in the same area of the store. It's like, okay.
Oh, that makes sense.
Although I think there's been some revision on that. They're not sure it's as close a connection.
Yeah.
So. But a few years ago, I was trying to trademark something, and I got rejected on the trademark. And then I got a bunch of emails from lawyers who were like, "Hey, do you need trademark assistance?" And I was like, "How the heck did you? How the heck did you learn that?"
So. Any government license or anything like that, I mean, that's public record. So people are just mining that stuff left and right.
Must be, yeah. I thought it may have been the Google thing, but
it
was Gmail. But you never know.
So how can our listeners take advantage of some of these things we've talked about and some of the trends that are coming? That's question number one. Then I've got another question after that, and then we start to wrap up.
Sure. So, what we do a lot of is data integration. So the whole thing is you really need to get your data in a very cleansed and a very very manageable state. And then, there are tools out there, some open source tools that can help you on the data visualization side of things. Or there are some that if you're a small company and and you don't need too many licenses, some of them are basically free on that level. There's also a lot of modeling. There's R, Python, which are all free, so you could use those models. Those have very nice communities as well. Yeah. So, and the thing about it is the consultant I keep mentioning, he's like, he's been working with SaaS for 3 decades now, right? And he's $200 US an hour. So he's very expensive. But the beauty of the tools that have come out over the past few years are they're very hands-on. You don't need to write code. You can just drop down, So
let me ask you a very specific kind of pointed question, Andrew. So one of my copywriting clients that I write emails and follow-up emails for, not a huge company, pretty common in the world that we broadcast to here on the podcast. They have they have a good coaching business. They coach real estate agents, make a good living, but there's a lot of data there, emails, clients, things like that. How could they specifically, what might they do as the next step to really embrace this next level of either predictive or AI? What tools could they use to start finding some stuff that they're just completely overlooking?
So, they could start looking at generative AI, obviously. There's the copywriting aspect there. There's, if there's any kind of content that you need, then the ChatGPT's Perplexity is actually one that I like a lot. I don't know if have you played around with that one at all? Perplexity.
I've been mostly with Chat and Claude has been the two that I've
Claude, yeah.
used as a copywriter and content creator. Those two things, those are the two I've used the most. But what'd you say?
Perplexity is an interesting one. I'll send you an email after this as well.
Okay.
You know, the reality also on the emails, you know, there are ways that you could do some sentiment mining through those, or text mining to find out what's going on in there. You know, there are some companies now who are looking at taking something like a ChatGPT and putting in all of the company data. So having kind of be an instance of their own. So putting in all of their company information and company data so that they can access that as kind of like a Q&A resource tool. So, you know, we have casinos clients that have 15,000 employees. So they're looking at maybe utilizing something like that as a place to just answer the employees' questions and dish out that element to them. And then honestly, ChatGPT, I mean, I would look at something like Midjourney. Have you used that at all?
Yeah. Midjourney.
Midjourney, I think, you know, it's a very, you know, you don't need to buy stock footage anymore. I mean, basically just, you know, and video wise, you know, you can create off of Runway ML or Pika. And there's another one too that I use a little bit, but I can't remember the name of it.
So what is,
I'm
curious on this sentiment mining idea. What is that? I have not heard that term before.
So a subset of AI is called natural language processing. And what we're partnered with a company called Alteryx. And what you can do is you can take the, you can go to a, say like a trip.com or even a hotel website, right? And get all of the comments from all of your customers and then run it through, you know, basically run it through sentiment analysis. And then you're going to have it's going to be able to give you, depending on how sophisticated you want it, can be good comment, bad comment, indifferent, or you could start looking for particular comments about, say, a particular restaurant or problem with the room, something like that. So basically, you can take thousands of comments that might be on your trip.com page and run it through that. And then, you know, you can have a situation where it's almost running every hour. So you could look at what people are saying on Facebook about your property and then connect with them and say, you know, we're sorry about this, or thank you for the thing, or, you know, we will give you an upgrade regarding this or that. So
yeah, or you could feed all your reviews into it, maybe, or all your
exactly
cool.
And then make it proactive. You know, basically feed all the reviews, and then all the reviews that are bad are basically those are the ones that your hotel manager gets and then has to react to.
Right.
So there's that, and that's one of the, I would say for as far as that branch of AI, that's probably one of the best uses for it. Because you know, once again, that goes back to customer, you know, that's CRM. You know, all of these casinos are now associating to, you know, because I think there was a few years ago they were even listening to something like Twitter, and someone, I think Wynn noticed someone had tweeted about them being in Vegas and they were going to go to the Venetian, and they shot a tweet and said, "Hey, why don't you come over here instead?" kind of a thing, you know. Nice. So it was good interactive stuff. You know, there was even geofencing these casinos so that when someone leaves that property to go to another property, they would get a text saying, "Come back. You know, we'll give you $10."
Yeah, come visit our restaurant or get a
exactly.
See the show inside our building, right? As opposed to walking across the street. Yeah, that's brilliant. I mean,
so you have things, you know, like customer churn is a big one as well for AI. You want to know who's going to be leaving, and then you have the choice: do I let them go? Because a lot of times these people are too expensive, right? You have some people who they may take an offer for your room, and then they go to another casino and play, and you see that a few times, and then you're like, you know, screw them. Why am I giving them a free room if, you know,
right,
they're just taking the free room and not coming down to my floor? So But it's all about, mostly it's all about behavior, and then trying to predict the behavior and trying to also massage the behavior and get them basically to do what you want. And sometimes they use it as well to map out the floor. So they want people to go to certain areas of the floor because they know this place is going to be busy and these places will be quiet. And then one last thing on that dynamic pricing, they were also looking at adding a labor element. So do I have my dealer stay for another 4 hours and keep this one table open, or do I keep this one table going, or do I open a second table, bring in that other dealer, and then I'm going to have an extra cost there, but I may be able to get more people playing. So I mean, they even have situations where one person sits at one table and they give up those 6 seats because they know he's a very big high roller and they want him just there to focus and deal to him as fast as they can, because it still takes time to pay out all the other people, right?
It's interesting though, this surge pricing, it kind of needs to be a little bit invisible. I think Wendy's here in the US just tried surge pricing with their fast food. It got just annihilated on social media, and they quickly reversed it.
Yeah, Burger King was marketing, and they were like using that to their advantage. I mean,
it was too obvious, right? I mean, it's like you have a menu of prices. Like, it works for Uber because you don't actually know what you're going to pay each time unless you take the same trip every day.
Yeah.
You don't actually know what the menu price is for an Uber ride.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you have an idea, it's so much per mile or whatever. So they can kind of get away with surge pricing. But when you have a 99-cent menu that goes to a $3 menu, like, people are going to notice. Like, it's
okay.
So
what happened
and
here?
It's like it started in the airline industry, and it's like people just don't have a problem with that, right? The hotels do it; they don't have a problem with that. Casinos do it, but there is an element that it's going on behind the scenes. But you kind of know if you're going to go to Vegas during the Super Bowl, you're going to pay an arm and a leg, right?
Absolutely.
So you're like, whatever. But a burger, it's like the prices are so low to start with. It just seems it seemed like a really bad, because I even saw it out here. I even tweeted, I guess, "What are you doing?"
It felt much more like price gouging as opposed to surge pricing.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, and that's a huge difference in customer sentiment.
That's like Taco Bell saying, "You know what? After 12 a.m., we're gonna jack this food up because we know that we're
the only ones open."
Yeah, exactly. Right. We're the only ones.
And
open.
If you smell marijuana on your breath, it's doubling, right?
Yeah, because you're going to buy twice as much. Exactly.
Actually, that's one of the things I do miss. We don't have Taco Bell out here. I do miss that.
Yep.
And I enjoy my trips to Manila because they do have Wendy's there, and that's one of the fast foods I enjoy. So.
Yeah. It's interesting how some of these like, I went to Guatemala a couple of years ago, and it's by far the nicest McDonald's I ever saw in my life was in Guatemala. Because they're newer, they're testing stuff. So you have a lot of KFC out there though, right? Isn't that big in the?
It's huge in China. Yeah.
Didn't we talk about that recently?
Yeah, we talked about that at Christmas. Yeah, they have a big Christmas thing at KFC in China. So it's like Thanksgiving.
They didn't want to do. They were like anti-Christmas this year. Like, Xi doesn't like Christmas for some reason. It's like, and it's weird. Like, if you travel the world, that is the world's holiday.
Yeah.
Because you can go to the Middle East, you can go to China, you can go to America, Western countries, and it's just everyone loves Christmas. And it's like, and they ignore
getting free stuff.
Screw you. Screw you.
Everybody loves getting gifts. Of course.
Of course.
You like the big fat man.
So, Andrew, as we wrap up, what's one piece of wisdom you want to leave with our listeners?
One piece of wisdom. Wow, that's a hard one.
Could be about marketing, could be personal life wisdom, could be anything.
I would say, what I would say is, I was a bit stuck. Actually, we didn't talk about my time in Hollywood, but I was a bit stuck in Hollywood and a bit insulated by that industry. And I did recognize a chance to move to Asia and kind of expand my mind and see new things. I mean, I'd lived in Asia before when I was a lot younger, but it was like, you never know where life is going to lead. And, I came to Asia. I had adapted a bunch of books into screenplays, but I was able to come here, focus, and, kept my eye open, because there's a few things that happen in the book there's a character who gets a loan. He takes money from a loan shark and ends up getting killed by the loan sharks, who actually live streamed his death on WeChat. And I read that and I was like, oh, I gotta put that in a book. And then there was an ICO that I got involved with, a crypto coin, and it was just like I took pieces of my life and just threw it in. So kind of embrace the new and things you might be scared of. You know, it's like it's not easy to write a novel or to write and put yourself out there, but you know, you shouldn't fear it. You know, because some people might not like it, but you'd be surprised at how many people do. And you know, it was. I bumped my head against the Hollywood brick wall for 10 plus years. And then when I wrote a book and tried to find a publisher, I think the fifth one I approached said, yeah, let's do this. So it was very heartening. So anyway.
Yeah. Is that the book, the Dead Chip Syndicate? That's the one you're referring
to. Dead Chip Syndicate. Yeah.
Yeah. You got some pretty good reviews on that.
Yep. A few of my friends, but a lot of them were not. So yeah. And
you always cheat the ones closest to you. Is that really a Chinese proverb? That sounds
that's really a Canton. Yeah. Although it's funny because I listed it up on LinkedIn and I had some Chinese person come and say, no, that's just a new Cantonese saying. It's not really a Chinese proverb. And I was like, well, it is for the book because it sounds better as a Chinese proverb, right?
Exactly. So, it's better for a thriller. That's for sure.
Yeah. And it's very true. Like they can be, you know, they can be a tough crowd. It's a very, very dog-eat-dog place, to be quite frank. So but
there's what was the Mark Wahlberg movie where he was a gambler?
Yeah,
you kind of got behind the scenes of some of that world.
I think it is called The Gambler. Yeah.
That was really good.
Scary stuff. Yeah.
He's also got The Fighter. Very, very creative names for those movies.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, exactly. Where do they come up with that?
I did turn the book into a script, and now, you know, I'm out there shopping it around. So the great irony would be I finally get a movie made after I left LA and Hollywood. So, but anyway.
Well, everybody loves
proof, I know
right?
Hollywood these days, they're not in. I talked to a buddy. I talked to a buddy of mine who's, you know, tried his hand at screenwriting out in Hollywood, and he said it's horrible now because they're like, all they want is like stuff that's been. It's like retread stuff,
sequels,
superheroes, or sequels, or retreads. So it's like nothing original is coming out of Hollywood these days, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And I guess unless it's going to Netflix or one of the streaming, platforms immediately.
And it's what's been amazing is because I did work on a couple of films. You know, I worked on a $2 million film and like a $75 million film. And now you look at these budgets and it's just hundreds of millions of dollars. And I have no problem with unions and, you know, these people making money, but I don't like the fact that they all seem to be retreads, you know, and it's just, you know, and the sad thing is there's never been so much new material being written, you know, in terms of books, articles, podcasts, even, and they just go for and they end up losing hundreds of millions of dollars. It's just like,
I mean, the biggest movie of the year so far is Dune, which is how old? I mean, it's been around forever, right? You know, it's like nothing new there.
No, nothing new. But that one will give it because it is a well-known novel and an impossible novel to adapt, apparently. But maybe not.
Yeah.
Have you seen it?
I mean, I have not. I've had a hard time getting through the first one. My daughter, who's 23, loves the whole Dune series. I remember seeing the first Dune back in the 80s.
Yep. Yeah.
And I don't know. I think I was scarred for life. But it was just not that great. So I just had a hard time getting through the first one. So I haven't seen the second one yet. But apparently it's, you know, people are loving it. Especially, it seems the younger generation is really liking it.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting because the generation that is supposedly have shorter attention span is loving this long, epic novel and long, epic movie.
Yeah. And I think that's when the material is good, you know, obviously they're connecting with something that they like. And, you know, for me, it was Star Wars, obviously, you know, but I'll never forget being in that theater in England, you know, as an 11-year-old boy, seeing that for the first time. It was It was just something totally fresh and unique and nothing like it
absolutely.
before, you know, which is
it's
not what we get now.
No,
it's it's like we say in copy, it's never too long or too short. It's just too boring.
too boring. Yes.
Very true.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think they say the same thing about sex. So, so anyway,
Oh man, that's a good note to close on.
we'll close on that.
I'll keep my Cambodian story for next time. My Cambodian casino stories for next time.
Andrew,
Anyway.
It's been a pleasure having you on today, man.
It's been
Thank
a pleasure
you so
on.
much.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. Yeah.
And we want to encourage listeners, if they want to know more, they can go to Amazon and check out all of your works. The Dead Chip Syndicate, AI Casino. I mean, you're pretty
busy
writer. I mean, it's like you're cranking them out, man. So
well, I'm not that young of a man either, so I've had some life in me.
That's awesome.
And I'm working on a sequel to the Dead Chip. It's called Quid Pro Crypto. So it's all about crypto and financing movies and all of that stuff. So it should be poking fun at Hollywood, but it'll be set in Malaysia. So
you need to get that out. You need to get that thing out now as the mania starts to hit in the next 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll be able to do that, but maybe I'll do an ebook
before the crash.
And what's your all-time favorite movie? Real quick, what is it?
What is my? Oh, you know what? I loved 8.5 by Fellini.
Okay,
I don't know if you've seen that. Yeah, that's 8.5. I saw that the first time at like 2:30 in the morning on PBS, coming home from the club, and it was just like, what the heck is this? And
check that out.
It's good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah,
very art.
Thanks for that recommendation. It's like
La Dolce Vita is good as well. Yeah. For Italian neorealism or that's not neorealism. That's just avant-garde stuff, but good stuff. Anyway. Okay, cool.
Andrew, thank you again
for your time.
Thank you for the time today. And, hang tight in the green room if you would. Sean and I are we're going to close out the show and then we'll bring you back up.
All right. Thank you very much. Again. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Very good stuff. Andrew Pearson. Check out his stuff on AI and just about everything under the sun.
Just go to Amazon, search Andrew Pearson for his author page, and you'll see he's got 17 different books going on in there. So
it's cool.
Good stuff.
Yeah. Very cool. Interesting topic.
Yeah. It's just taking over the world for sure.
It's like picture these tentacles just going from AI into every little
niche and
of our life, right?
Nook and cranny. Right.
We'll see how it plays out. Should be fun. Get your popcorn.
Yep.
As Lane Kiffin said, get your popcorn ready. All right. To all of our listeners out there, you can check us out, persuasionbythepint.com. You can find this episode and many more like it over there or wherever you check out all of your podcasts on any of the podcast platforms out there. So check us out. Leave us 5 stars if you haven't already. We greatly appreciate it. And send us an email if you have questions. That's persuasionbythepint@gmail.com. If you have comments, send them to us. And we appreciate it. Sean, it's been fun, man. We'll see you all next time.
See ya.
All right.